really breaks my heart. Cause we've been lied to, misled for years, calling out to the Most High on this trail of tears. Higher, 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 higher.
That's the spirit we got to be in, obviously, in this world, is to feel like going on. That goes right into the lesson today. Because when you feel like going on, there's a lot of things that you will refuse to do to go on with the Most High and keeping His commandments. So both of those, that song is fitting for the lesson today, which is called, the title of is The Spirit Behind the Word No. All right, so we're going to get the spirit behind the word no. All right, so as we read the first commentary, we're going to get some more information on, and this is going to be a lesson where, you know, the brothers and sisters and the other congregation is going to get some insight on what types of spirits is going to be behind these scriptures, in order to get some more clarification and understanding. So go ahead with the commentary.
The spirit behind the word no. Our spirituality determines the journey our lives can take and what decisions we make. A word alone can choose our fate if we're not careful. We must realize and understand the power that a single word has, if not backed by the Most High's wisdom, and what path it can take us on. The word no can either help you or hurt you. Let's search the scriptures for a few examples.
All right, so we know and understand, like I said, the spirituality, or normally when you use words, there have to be some type of feeling behind it, or some type of understanding, education, some type of spirituality goes behind the words we bring forth when we speak to people. Certain feelings and emotions go behind what we say. Our education goes behind what we say. Our understanding of comprehending things go behind what we say. And a lot of times that comes along with the actual spirit. So we're going to go into some wisdom scriptures first, just getting some understanding on the use of words. So the first scripture we have is James chapter 3, verse 6.
The book of James, chapter 3, verse 6. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity.
So when it says a tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity, it's talking about it's in itself, the tongue, in its own world, is iniquity. Keep reading.
So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body.
So we don't understand what you say can represent you. The tongue represent you. What you say, what the words you use represent your character. So whatever that comes out of your mouth will determine how somebody will view you. Keep reading.
And set it on fire the course of nature.
And it setteth on fire the course of nature. The things that are said starts wars. The things that we do starts a downward spiral, or something that is good in the world. But what it does, whatever thing is said or a command is made, just like the Most High commanded the earth to be made, it set a course for that. The Most High, commanded that there be light. There was light. So the tongue can set forth nature. Keep reading.
And it is set on fire of hell.
And it also sets on fire of hell. What we say can lead us to hell as well. So words are very important in what we use them, because words alone don't have meaning unless there's something behind it. So we're going to go to the next scripture, Proverbs 18 and 7.
This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 18, verse 7. A fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are the snare of his soul.
Exactly. So that's why it leads off with a fool, because a fool is someone who doesn't understand what he's doing is leading to his own destruction, to his own harm. And it says, and his lips are the snare of his soul. So his lips, what if he says, condemning him. And he doesn't, but by him being an individual, being a fool, he doesn't know that or understand that, because he doesn't have the wisdom to understand what he's saying is actually condemning him as well, right? So we're going to go on to one more wisdom scripture, which is Matthew chapter 12, verse 37.
The book of Matthew, chapter 12, verse 37. For by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned.
Exactly. So it's twofold. Either you will be justified by the Most High, or you'll be condemned by the choice of your words. Like I said, the word alone doesn't have any meaning unless there's something backing it. So whatever we say can condemn us, or it can bring us life, all right? So with that, just getting some understanding on just the use of words, and the word we're going to be using today is no. We're going to give the definition of no according to the Webster Dictionary.
No is defined as an act or instance of refusing or denying by the use of the word no.
So once again, I'll read again. It says no is defined as an act or instance of refusing or denying by the use of the word no. So it's an act. It's actually used as an action that you're doing something, you're defending something, you're going along with something. So this word is very important in the scriptures, as far as that, because we're going to go into some scriptures concerning on how this word no was used in order to either benefit the individual or actually hurt the individual. All right. So we're going to go into some scriptures on the word no in disobedience that would lead to curses. So we're going to start off in the book of Genesis, chapter 3, verses 1 through 7, 16 through 19, and 22 through 24. So once again, that's the book of Genesis, chapter 3, verses 1 through 7, 16 through 19, and 22 through 24.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 3, verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Most High thy power had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath the Most High said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden?
So we understand and know this. We read this scripture countless of times, but we're going to get some more understanding. Keep reading.
And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, the Most High has said, You shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest ye die.
So the command was made, the command was given by the Most High not to eat of this tree that's in the midst of the garden. So they knew and understood that this was something they could not do. Keep reading.
And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die.
So the wisdom Satan had, he knew and understood that the understanding that Adam and Eve had is that they thought they were going to die right on the spot. But Satan, knowing and understanding that wasn't the case because he was created before them, that's why he said, surely you wouldn't surely die, meaning that you're not going to die instantly. Keep reading.
For the Most High doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil.
So he let them in on the secret that if you partake of this, then you have understanding like God has understanding. Keep reading.
And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons.
All right, so now we are understanding that they were aware of themselves. They were now understood things now by eating this fruit or getting this knowledge. So in this particular instance, what spirit was Adam and Eve under? And just what we read so far, what spirit were they under? Huh? A fool, just a little bit more, yeah. Yeah, but what spirit was Adam and Eve under? As far as that, when they knew the Most High's commandments, but they, Defiant spirit, yeah, things like that. Rebellious, exactly. So this is the spirit behind them refusing to keep the Most High's commandments. So this is that one spirit behind the word no that they said no to. They said no to his commandments concerning it. So we got these spirits that are behind this word no. We're going to continue on. Verse 16.
Verse 16, this is Genesis chapter 3, verse 16. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee.
So this is the, an understanding, this is the curses that happens from saying no to the Most High. For the women. Keep reading.
And unto Adam he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree, of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. So we know this is the curse, part of the curse of Adam, is that he's going to have to always work. Now, nothing is going to come easy for him. So now he's got to work hard for everything he has to obtain. Back then here, he had to work in the garden and things like that in order to get his food, where everything grew for him. He was able just to pick it. Everything was just hand brought to him, served to him. But now our jobs as men, we have to go out and work to support our families by any means, not by any means necessary, but by the means in order we have to provide. It's in us to do so. Once we have a family, it's in us. Our responsibility changes most of the time. It changes to where we know we have to do something. That's why we have children. I gotta go get a job. It's in us because that's the curse that we were under, because we had to work and provide for our family because of the disobedience we had when we said no to the Most High. And like I said, once again, sisters, the curses that were put upon them by the same rebellious spirit. All right, keep reading. Verse 18. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground. For of it wast thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. Exactly. So we don't understand, work hard. You got to get up early in the morning. We got to drive some distances to work. We got to do a lot of things in order to, make sure that we maintain what we have. To where, like I said before, everything was given to us so easily by the Most High. So we're going to jump down a couple of verses to verse 22. And the Most High Power said, behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. So the Most High knew, like, hey, if this brother get a hand of that tree of life, hey, him and his descendants are going to be just like us, right? So keep reading. Therefore the Most High Power sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove him out, the man, and he placed him at the east of the Garden of Eden, cherubims, and a flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. So we don't understand that even in the book of Adam and Eve explaining how sorrowful Adam was when he got kicked out of the garden, and how hard everything was for him, how the fears he had when he was out of the garden, to
to where it was a safe place, but now he's going out of that area. Now he's got animals. He's not able to have all the special abilities and gifts he once had when he was in the garden. He started losing. He tainted himself, as far as that. So those are the curses that they received from saying no to the Most High's commands, right? So we will continue on. We got another one in 2nd Esdras, chapter 16. We're going to be going into verses 67 through 76.
This is the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 16, starting at verse 67. Behold, the Most High himself is the judge. Fear him. Leave off from your sins and forget your iniquities, to meddle no more with them forever. So shall the Most High lead you forth and deliver you from all trouble.
So this is prophecy. We don't understand that the Most High is the judge, and we should fear him and leave off from sin. So let you know, when you hear the term judge, is that something comes that a judge, only way he can judge is by laws. He has to have something to judge you by, and that's sin. He judges based off what we do. But it says forget your iniquities, to meddle no more with them forever. It says, so shall God, the Most High, lead you forth and deliver you from all your troubles. So he's giving you the scripture saying that if you don't meddle with him no more, meaning that don't go back to him, he's going to actually take care of you and deliver you from your trouble. Keep reading. It says from all trouble. That's key. From all trouble. Not some, but all. Keep reading.
Verse 68. For behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you.
So he's explaining now by giving you the good news. He's going to explain to you, the Most High is going to explain to you now that with that, I'm telling you this now because this is going to happen. Keep reading.
And they shall take away certain of you and feed you, being idle, with things offered unto idols.
So being idle, meaning that we're not about the Most High's business. We got caught in the storm. We didn't prepare. When you're idle, that means that you're not doing anything. You know what I'm saying? You're being slothful, right? So this burning wrath of a great multitude shall take away certain of you, those who are being idle, those who are not preparing themselves in the word, those who are not preparing themselves for what's coming, right? And it says, and they're going to offer you things unto idols, meaning they're going to test you to partake in things, just like what's going to happen here. The government, the laws, is going to test us to partake in certain things. It's going to shoe us in or corner us, whether it be our jobs, whether it be, what we do outside of here. Your normal life is going to box you in so you can serve their idols. Keep reading.
And they that consent unto them,
keep reading,
shall be had in derision and in reproach and trodden underfoot.
Right, so those who consent, this doesn't mean that they're not going to do anything to you. Remember, it just said this is a burning wrath of a great multitude. So when you bow down to their God, bow down to what they're doing, they no longer have respect for you. And you're still going to get trodden down underfoot. Keep reading.
For there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Most High.
Right. So it says in every city, every place, and in the next city. So everywhere you're going to have people going against the God of the Bible, go against the law, statutes, commandments. I mean, we see it mostly every day, not to the point where there's you have to hide your identity of being an Israelite or follow Christ. But that time will come. Keep reading.
They shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Most High.
Exactly. So they're going to come after our people, right? And we understand this. Keep reading.
For they shall waste and take away their goods, and cast them out of their houses, Then shall they be known, who are my chosen,
It says, then shall they be known who are my chosen. Keep reading.
and they shall be tried as a gold in the fire. Hear, O ye my beloved, saith the Most High. Behold, the days of trouble are at hand, but I will deliver you from the same.
See, this is the spirit we have to continue to remember, is that the Most High word doesn't come back void. Whatever he said he's going to do. Keep reading.
Be ye not afraid,
Be not afraid,
neither doubt,
neither doubt.
for the Most High is your God.
Exactly. So, being not afraid and not consenting is basically you're telling them no. You're in the spirit of serving the Most High by not consenting to what everybody else is doing. Keep reading.
And the guide of them who keep my commandments and precepts, saith the Most High Power. Let not your sins weigh you down, and let not your iniquities lift up themselves.
Exactly. So the Most High is going to guide those who keep his commandments, right? It said, be not afraid, neither doubt, for the Most High is your guide. And that's what we have to remember so we don't get compromised like the people we read here who did consent, who get trodden underfoot. They said no to the Most High, but said yes to those because they were afraid of it. That's why the Most High said, don't be afraid. Right? Or neither doubt. Don't doubt his word. That's why he began off and said in verse 67, behold, the Most High himself is the judge. Fear him. Leave off from your sin and forget your iniquities, to meddle no more with them forever. So shall the Most High lead you forth and deliver you from all trouble. So if those individuals that we just read in the scriptures, if they were to believe in it because they were followers of Christ, but they had fear of man versus the fear of man was greater than the Most High. So they said no to keeping the commandments, but then they said yes to whatever these people were consenting them to do, and they still got destroyed for it. All right. So we're going to go on for one more scripture for knowing disobedience. We're going to go to the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 15. We're going to go through verses 1 through 3. Then 19 through 23.
Con?
First Samuel chapter 15, verses 1 through 3, and verses 19 through 23.
The book of 1 Samuel, chapter 15, verse 1. Samuel also said unto Saul, the Most High sent me to anoint thee, to be king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore hearken thou unto the voice of the words of the Most High. Thus says the Most High of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass.
All right, so we know and understand this story where the Most High told Saul, he gave him a command to destroy Amalek and all his possessions, right? So we know and understand that, so we're going to drop down to verse 19, sorry.
Verse 19. Wherefore, then didst thou not obey the voice of the Most High, but didst fly upon the spoil, and didst evil in the sight of the Most High? And Saul said unto Samuel, Yea, I have obeyed the voice of the Most High, and have gone the way which the Most High sent me, and have brought Agag the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people took of the spoil, sheep and oxen, the chief of the things which should have been utterly destroyed, to sacrifice unto the Most High thy power in Gilgal.
All right, so we understand this in verse 20. Saul didn't understand or comprehend what Samuel told him concerning destroy everything, but he said he did, which we know and understand he didn't. Just reading verses 1 through 3. But in verse 21 it says, but the people took of the spoil, sheep and oxen, the chief of the things which should have been utterly destroyed, to sacrifice unto the Most High. So in this instance, in Saul rejecting what the Most High said because of the people, what spirit do you think Saul had behind him? Well, her deceit. What else? What else? Pride. Pride in what instance?
Like, he thought he was better.
Okay, that's a good one. Good one. All right. Any? Rebellion. Right. What about fear? What about, you acquiescing to what the people are saying? He's king. You know what I'm saying? If you're king, you shouldn't be fearing what other people say, to the point where you acquiesce to them, to where they still, taking what's the best anything when the Most High gave you a command to say, hey, kill everything. So you got these spirits that everybody is bringing forth, which is behind the decision that Saul said no to the Most High's commands. All right, keep reading.
Verse 22, and Samuel said, hath the Most High as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Most High? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Most High, he hath also rejected thee from being king.
Exactly. So that's the curse from actually Saul, and also he lost the kingship for his whole tribe. Anybody remember the story where he told him that, if he would obey them, Benjamin would have been the tribe, the kingship, versus Judah as far as that. So he messes up not only for himself, but his whole nation. You know what I'm saying? You could have had Benjamin, as, the kingship for Israel. So those are a list of scriptures just explaining and understanding on what no can mean in the instance of leads to curses and the disobedience. So we're going to get into the scriptures for the word no that leads us into blessing. So we're going to start off with the book of Esther, chapter 1, verses 1 through we're going to start at verse 1, like if you will press. Yes, start verse 1.
This is the book of Esther, chapter 1, verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days as Ahasuerus, if I said that right. This is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia over 127 provinces. That in those days when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the palace, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a great feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and the princes of the provinces being before him.
So basically, to get some more understanding, I do have the Septuagint, which is an older version of the Bible that's translated from the Greek, and give an understanding that the Ahasuerus is, when we look at for the Bible, when the Persian Medo Empire started with our people chronicalized, you had Cyrus, you had Darius, you had Xerxes, and then you had Artaxerxes, his son. So Artaxerxes is what's mentioned here in the Bible under Ahasuerus. Now Ahasuerus is mentioned also when you get to, I think it's Esdras, I think it's Esdras. But the actual, in the Septuagint, it mentions it's Artaxerxes, which is Xerxes' son. So Artaxerxes is actually the one who married, Esther. But then when you look into the book of Nehemiah, we'll go there real quick because it mentions one little, and I'll get it real quick. It's Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 6. Let me see if I can. Nehemiah chapter 2, start at verse 1.
The book of Nehemiah, chapter 2, verse 1. And it came to pass in the month Nisan, in the 20th year of Artaxerxes the king, that wine was before him, and I took up the wine and gave it unto the king. Now I had not been before time sad in his presence.
All right, so we know this is talking about Artaxerxes, right? So we're going to jump over to verse 6.
And the king said unto me, the queen also sitting by him.
So they mentioned the queen in reference, and it's put that little part in parentheses as far as they mentioned the queen. Keep reading.
For how long shall thy journey be? And when wilt thou return? So it pleased the king to send me, and I sent him a time.
So that just lets you know that this queen that they're talking about, that Nehemiah was with, that was Esther. From the scriptures, from the Septuagint, giving understanding that Artaxerxes was the actual king of the Persians at the time, that Ahasuerus was actually Artaxerxes, not Xerxes. How if you look in Ezra, it would say Xerxes, but as you can see that Ahasuerus means Xerxes anyway, but his son was Artaxerxes versus just Xerxes. So they just get a little tidbit of information concerning who that was. But it does mention Esther in Nehemiah as the queen. They just put that little quotation that lets you know that, when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, they're talking about Esther in this particular situation. So, all right, so jumping back.
We're going to pick up back on Esther verse 4. When he shewed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days, even 180 days. And when these days were expired, the king made a great feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan, the palace, both unto great and small, 7 days, in the court of the garden of the king's palace.
All right, so we're going to go into the Septuagint. We're going to kind of read side by side with the story. It says that the king made this great feast for 160 days, but it never mentioned what the feast was for, right? So we're going to go into the same book of Esther in the Septuagint and read those first 5 verses.
All right, this is Esther from the Septuagint, and we're picking it up at verse 8. Okay. All right, verse 1. And it came to pass after these things, in the days of Artaxerxes, this Artaxerxes ruled over 127 provinces from India. In those days, when King Artaxerxes was on the throne in the city of Susa, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast to his friends and the other nations, and to the nobles of the Persians, and the Medes, and the chief of the satraps. And after this, after he had shown to them the wealth of his kingdom, and the abundance and glory of his wealth, during 108 days, when I say the days of the marriage feast were completed, the king made a banquet to the nations who were present in the city 6 days in the court of the king's house, which was adorned with hangings of fine linen and flax on cords, and of silver studs on pillars of Parian marble and stone.
So we understand that this feast was actual marriage feast. It was like a wedding, right? So we're going to go back into the King James, starting at verse 6.
Verse 6, where were white, green, and blue hangings, fastened with the cords of fine linen, and purple to silver rings, and pillars of marble. The beds were of gold and silver, upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black marble. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another, and royal wine in abundance, according to the state of the king. And the drinking was according to the law. None did compel. For so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house, that they should do according to every man's pleasure. Also Vashti the queen made a feast for the women in the royal house which belonged to King Ahasuerus. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbonah, Bigtha, Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcass, the 7 chamberlains that served the presence of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to shew the people and the princes her beauty, for she was fair to look on.
All right, so in these same scriptures, we're gonna go to in the Septuagint, verse 8. We're gonna start at verse 8 in the Septuagint. So we know this is a wedding. So this was a wedding that lasted over 160 days, a wedding feast. So and we know and understand that he was showing off his wealth. They were drinking in vessels of gold. They had the best wine. They told the officers, "Hey, get everybody what they want. Whatever they want, get for them. Whatever drink they want, whatever wine, whatever. They was doing it big, right?" So we're gonna start at verse 8.
This is verse 8 in Esther in the Septuagint. And this banquet, but so the king would have it, and he charged the stewards. Okay, Salakia. And this banquet was not according to the appointed law, but so the king would have it, and he charged the stewards to perform his will and that of the company. Also Vashti, the queen, made a banquet for the women in the palace where King Artaxerxes dwelt. Now on the 7th day, the king, being merry, told Aman and Bazan and Tharha and Barazi and Zathalophin and Abataza and Tharaba, the 7 chamberlains and servants of King Artaxerxes, to bring in the queen to him, to enthrone her and crown her with the diadem, and to show her to the princes and her beauty to the nations, for she was beautiful. But Queen Vashti hearkened not to him to come with the chamberlains, so the king was grieved and angered.
All right, so we know that she said no, she refused. So what that word enthroned means, it says bring in the queen to him to enthrone her. So that word enthroned is what?
To make her queen.
So this was to make her queen. So she wasn't queen as of yet, right? So this was to, after 7 days, he was going to show her off to everybody. All right, this is the queen. Just like how, what we know now, like in presidential races, they become president, but they don't become president till the inauguration. You know what I'm saying? So this is kind of the same instance. She was chosen to be queen by him, but she wasn't queen yet until he actually, presented her as such, right? All right, so we're going to jump back to Esther. We're going to go to 11. Okay, go ahead and read verse 12.
Verse 12, Book of Esther, KJV, King James Version. But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. All right, so we're going to jump down to verse 20. Verse 20. And when the king's...
I'm sorry, verse 19. Salakia, verse 19. Let's do verse 19.
Verse 19, this is Esther chapter 1, verse 19. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it not be altered, that Vashti come no more before the king Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. And when the king's decree, which he shall make, shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both to great and small. And the saying pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Memucan. For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, into every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, and that it should be published according to the language of every people.
All right, so that's what Queen Vashti did. So what spirit was Queen Vashti behind her, and when she refused, when she said no to the king? I know there should be a lot of them. What is it? Rebellion? What else? There's some more. There's a lot of intel concerning why she would say no. Now we understand. We just read that she was queen, but she wasn't in the queen seat yet. But they said she was fair to look upon. So I'm looking at vanity. You know what I'm saying? When you vain, you can have a lot of things that you can say no to, or think that because you're this, that no one's going to refuse you regardless of what you do. To say no to the king, and then like I said, we just read that she wasn't queen yet, but she thought she had it in the bag. You know what I'm saying? So with that, when you're attractive and people sweating you and things like that, you get that head. And now she lost her rulership, but this is a good thing for Israel, right? We're going to read further. So we're going to jump down to chapter 2. What's the question? Is it quick? Because I want to get through the lesson. You don't know? Okay, just hold it for the end of the lesson. You know what I'm saying? We hold for the end of the lesson. So. All right, so we're going to go to, we're standing in Esther, chapter 2, starting verses 1 through 8.
Of the book of Esther, chapter 2, verse 1. After these things, when the wrath of King Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti and what she had done, and what was decreed against her. Then said the king's servants, that ministered unto him. Let there be fair young virgins sought for the king. And let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of the kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins unto Shushan the palace, to the house of the women, unto the custody of Heg, the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women. And let their things for purification be given them. And let the maiden which pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. Now in Shushan the palace there was a certain Jew, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite.
So we understand and know that, there was a decree sent out that the king is looking for a new wife, right? So that sounds like an episode of The Bachelor, right? Keep reading.
Who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away.
So this understanding, it says, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah. Now, Jeconiah, there was two captivities almost at the end before all of Judah left. So you had Jeconiah, which was 8 years old. When he was king, he was made king, he was taken by Nebuchadnezzar, and there was a group of Israelites that left with him. And then after that, you had the last one, which was Zedekiah, when they took the rest of Israel after that, and then they burned down and destroyed everything. So Mordecai came with that first initial group of people that came with Jeconiah, who was king. Like I said, he was just a young, he was 8 years old when he was taken. And Nebuchadnezzar set him up, and he lived a good life in Babylon. But Mordecai was with that original group when you go back and read 2 Kings, at the end of 2 Kings. All right, keep reading.
And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter. So it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan and the palace, to the custody of Hegai, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custody of Hegai, keeper of the women.
All right, so basically you had these, the Persians were sent out, and they were just looking for the fairest females, and they saw Esther and was like, hey, we're taking her too. So we're going to go and read the same scriptures in the Septuagint, right? So we're going to do chapter 2. We're going to start at verse 5. We're going to start at verse 4. Start at verse 4. 4 through 8.
This is Esther in the Septuagint, starting at verse 4. We're still in chapter 1. Chapter 2. Oh, yeah, Septuagint. And let the woman who shall please the king be queen instead of Ashton or Vashti. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. Now there was a Jew in the city Susa, and his name was Mordecai, the son of Jairus, the son of Simyas, the son of Sisus, of the tribe of Benjamin, who had been brought a prisoner from Jerusalem, which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had carried into captivity. And he had a foster child daughter of Aminadab, his father's brother, and her name was Esther. And when her parents were dead, he brought her up for a wife for himself, and the damsel was beautiful.
So the story said, I know you got the strange look. So actually Mordecai was actually bringing up Esther to be his wife. So basically, when, he's bringing a wife, because who all knows understands the tradition as far as Okay, we all know and understand, right? So if it's not with the actual father and mother, they can't be together. But if there's like, if you have a brother or cousin, it doesn't matter, first cousin, things like that. If they're not from the same bloodline or father and mother, then one can marry, as far as that. So actually, Mordecai was bringing up Esther as a wife. But, the king was like, just like it says in, when the Most High told the children of Israel in 1 Samuel, well, to happen when you get a king. And they're gonna take the women, he'll take your women, so he'll take, take the men you need, he'll take those who can do, the best of the best. He's gonna scoop them up, and this is what, the Persian king did. He left Mordecai, without supposed to be wife. So yeah, I just thought to bring that out. I was a little interested because that, but yeah, he was planning on marrying Esther. So we're gonna continue on, verse 16.
All right, we're going back into Esther on verse 16. Chapter 2, verse 16. So Esther was taken unto King Ahasuerus unto his house, royal in the 10th month, which is the month Tebah, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti.
Right. So, in the understanding how no became a blessing, Vashti refusing became a blessing for Esther. We know how that all ended as far as, her and Mordecai saving the children of Israel, during the Persian captivity. So, we're going to, got a couple more scriptures here. Book of Daniel, chapter 3. I'm kind of jumping around here a little bit. Daniel chapter 3, verses 1 through 6, 12 through 13, 16 through 25, and 28 through 30. So that's Daniel chapter 3, verses 1 through 6, 12 and 13, 16 through 25, and 28 through 30.
All right, this is the book of Daniel, chapter 3, verse 1. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 80 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then an herald cried aloud, to you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages.
So it says, O people, nations, and languages. So you got multiple nationalities at this event. Can you read it?
That at what time you hear the sound, the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye shall fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. And whoso falleth not down and worshipeth shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace.
So basically, we don't understand if there's no Mardi Gras going on. That's what it sounds like, because all these different types of instruments playing. If there's no parade going on, you don't have to bow down. But if you hear parade going on with all types of music, you have to bow down to this image, right? So we got the backdrop concerning what's going on here. We're going to go down to verse 12.
Verse 12. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up.
So I know you can't stand somebody who just like, we call them tattletales, those who like, snitches and things like that, who just are looking to get someone in trouble. As you can see, they started off with there are certain Jews whom thou hast set over affairs, so they were jealous with the positions they had. Right? Keep reading.
Then Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage and fury, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king.
So we look at a present time Babylon now. Hey, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, if they had, now this is the king, all right? So we can look at it today as like, they were like high-ranking officials in government, in the presidency. You know what I'm saying? They may not have been in the president's cabinet, but they may have been down like the hallway or something like that. They had certain positions that were prominent in Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom. So, did you read 13 already? Yes. Okay. No, we're going to jump down to verse 16.
Verse 16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter.
So this is what I love. Regardless of, and this is the thing that we have to be as well, regardless of what position that we have in this kingdom, we still have to uphold what the Most High has bestowed upon us. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, and answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. So they're not going to mix their words, regardless of who's standing in front of them. They're not going to try to talk around it. They're not going to try to butter it up. They're like, no, I'm not going to mix any words with what we're not doing here. Keep reading.
If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king.
So, what spirit was behind these three men to say no to the king, to bow down to them? Faith, wisdom. What else? You said love? Yeah, love of the Most High, right? Obedience. You said fear? Fear of the Most High. Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the beginning of wisdom. And understanding that fear, right, takes us to Matthew 10 and 28. That we should fear the Most High above men, And that's what they did, because they know that they knew who could put their soul in hell. They understood that, what I'm saying? So this is the power in this statement, especially when they came to him and said, we're not going to be, it says, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. So, what I'm saying, that right there, that defiance to them and not to the Most High, just shows you how confident they were in the scriptures. All right, keep reading.
But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it was wont to be heated. And he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace.
So it's amazing on how they said they commanded the most mighty men, right? Let me get that. Let's see here. And it says, for mighty men, and my Bible says mighty of strength. So these brothers were intimidating as well. So he had to get like it does, like us here where we go, that it's always more than one police officer. There's always more than one person that's got, if you're in a fight. you know, they got to have more than one person to fight you. No one goes there. So they had to pick the most mightiest men for these three brothers as well. So by their faith in the Most High, showed them how they stood up to the king. Gave fear, they had to pick the strongest men because these guys are not fearing anything. They're standing behind the Most High. Keep reading.
Then these men were bound in their coats, their hosen, and their hats, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fury furnace.
Now it says hats, but in mine it says turbans, which I don't understand is a mitre. You know what I'm saying? So they have hats here, but it's in here it says turbans, and I know we don't rock turbans. It's mitres. So keep reading.
Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fury furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished, and rose up in haste, and spake, and said unto his counselors, did not we cast three men bound into the midst of the fire?
So Nebuchadnezzar rose up because he saw something was different. He's like, there's only three brothers in there. Keep reading.
They answered and said unto the king, true, O king. He answered and said, lo, I see 4 men loose.
He said, I see 4 men loose. Now remember, in verse 17, he said, our God will deliver us. And he said, from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. So they were boasting to the king and said, hey, our God is going to save us out of this. Keep reading. Keep reading.
Walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the fourth is like the Son of the Most High. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fury furnace, and spake and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High God, come forth and come hither. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth of the midst of the fire. And the princes, governors, and captains, and the king's counselors being gathered together, saw these men, upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was an hair of their head singed, neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of fire had passed on them.
So it was probably like, Israel is probably doing some break dancing, the handstands, doing the worm in the midst of the fire. You know what I'm saying? Pop locking, all those type of things, showing that, see, look, I'm in and out, you know what I'm saying? Not, all that, you know what I'm saying? Doing jumping jacks, showing that, hey, look, you know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing touched, they're doing the shoulder thing, they probably, ain't nothing. Ain't nothing bothering me or nothing like that. So you say, look at my clothes, see, So they were showing them, hey, we told you what was going to happen. Keep reading.
Then Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word, and yielded their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any God except their own God. Therefore I make a decree that every people, nation, and language which speak anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other God that can deliver after this sort.
So it made, obviously it made King Nebuchadnezzar a believer, right? Keep reading.
Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon.
So with that faith, they got promoted from the positions they first had to something even greater. That's the blessing that came out of them by having the faith to say no to the king and keeping the Most High's commandments. So that's a scripture that's concerning in righteousness, saying no in righteousness on how they didn't know what was going to happen, what the king was going to do. They just had belief and faith in the Most High that they was going to be delivered from whatever situation they were in. Now, this was ultimately death that they were faced with. And these are the things that we have to consider on, we have to build our faith. And like I say, your faith increases because of your experiences and, on how you operate with the Most High. It's something that you just don't have. Like the scriptures tell us that the faith is like a mustard seed. It starts small, but of course it grows. So your faith, you're not We're not saying that you have to have, your faith is where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is, but that's where you want it to end up, to where regardless of what happens, you know what's on the other side for you. And when you have the faith knowing, it's easy to read the scriptures and read it, but to actually stand up with it is another thing. And we know and understand that, you can say one thing but do another. And that's where we got to get to, but our faith has to increase to that. And like I said, everybody's faith is not going to be there yet. Everybody's faith is not going to be where Elder Carr's faith is. You know what I'm saying? But we want to build our faith to what we read in the scriptures, right? So, with that, we're going to go to some more scriptures. Let me see. These are going to be scriptures on how the word no can affect others, right? So we're going to go to 2nd Esdras in the Apocrypha, chapter 3, verses 21 and 22, and 2nd Esdras, chapter 7, verses 46 through 49.
This is the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 3, verses 21 and 22. For the first Adam, bearing a wicked heart, transgressed and was overcome, and so be all they that are born of him.
So we understand that because of Adam's transgression, that all those who are born of him will be of the same like manner. Keep reading.
Thus, infirmity was made permanent, and the law also in the heart of the people with the malignity of the root, so that the good departed away and the evil abode still.
So we understand, I'll read again, it says, thus infirmity was made permanent, and the law also in the heart of the people with the malignity of the root, so that the good departed away and evil abode still. So we know and understand in Romans 7 explains the two laws, the law of the spirit and the law of the Most High. Law of the flesh. That's in our members. This happened when Adam didn't say no to Eve from eating that fruit. So we're going to jump over to chapter 7 now.
This is 2nd Esdras chapter 7, verses 48 and 46 through 49. I answered then and said, this is my first and last saying, that it had been better not to have given the earth unto Adam, or else, when it was given him, to have restrained him from sinning.
Exactly. So this is Esdras. It says, I answered then and said, this is my first and last saying, that it had been better not to have given the earth to Adam, or else when it was given him to have restrained him from sinning. Keep reading.
For what profit is it for men now in this present time to live in the heaviness, and after death to look for punishment?
So Esdras is like, man, what is it worth for us to be born and not be able to get rid of this sin we just read, not being able to get rid of him, but then after that still get punished? Keep reading.
O thou Adam, what hast thou done?
So he's like, man, what have you done, Adam? Keep reading.
For though it was thou that sinned, thou art not fallen alone.
Exactly. So by him not saying no to Eve, he wasn't the only one affected by his decision. Keep reading.
But we all that come of thee.
All that come of thee. Keep reading.
For what profit is it unto us if there be promised us an immortal time, whereas we have done the works that bring death?
Exactly. So this is what this goes into family decisions. When we don't say no to certain things, it can affect those that we love, those that we cherish. and uphold to a certain extent. When we don't say no to certain things, when we don't say no, and the decisions that come from not saying no will affect, your family and those that you're close to. And those are the things that we have to remember, that by Adam not saying no, it didn't affect him, but it affected everybody after him, where we have to live with sin and have to fight it off daily in order to get to the kingdom or have eternal life, right? So, we're going to go to the commentary. Oh, you know what? Actually, go to, before the commentary, go to Romans 5, 17 through 19.
This is the book of Romans chapter 5, starting at verse 17. For if by one man's offense death reigned by one, much more they which receive abundance of grace and of the gift of righteousness shall reign in life by one, Yeshua Christ.
Exactly. So it says, for if by one man's offense death reigned, so by Adam's offense, death reigned by one, also life should be given by one, by Christ. Keep reading.
Therefore, as by the offense of one judgment came upon all men to condemnation, even so by the righteousness of one, the free gift came upon all men unto justification of life.
So once again, it says, therefore, as by the offense of one, judgment came upon all men to condemnation. Just what Ezra just read in Ezra concerning that. But even so, by the righteousness of one, which is Yeshua, the free gift came upon all men unto justification of life. And we know that free gift is not to be, free gift is the Holy Spirit. Also with that is the grace that comes with knowing that we've sinned, knowing that we received the sin from Adam, and knowing and understanding the Most High is fair in judgment. He gave us an opportunity not to be able to fall through that, because obviously it wasn't our fault that Adam partook, and then we ended up having to deal with sin in our members. But so that's why Christ the Most High gave us Yeshua to give us a way out of that, giving us grace. All right, keep reading.
Verse 19. For as by one man's disobedience,
so we said that earlier, spirit of disobedience, keep reading.
Many were made sinners, so by the obedience of one shall many be made righteous. Moreover, the law entered that the offense might abound, but where sin abounded, grace did much more abound.
Exactly. So we don't understand where sin abound, grace abound as well, because we need that grace, because we don't understand we're living in sin. Our bodies is sin, and with that sin, the Most High knows we need that grace. So if we do mess up, we need to have opportunity in the kingdom. So with that, we go to the commentary.
By not saying no, Adam compromised his entire lineage to eternal life, and now all mankind is suffering because of it. We must be aware that decisions not only affect us, but those who are near and dear to us.
All right, so we're getting into the home stretch here. The next one we have is 1 Timothy chapter 1. Verses 18 through 20. And then Romans chapter 1, verse 20 through 32.
First Timothy chapter 1, verse 18. This charge I commit unto thee, son Timothy, according to the prophecies which went before on thee, that thou by them mightest war a good warfare, holding faith and a good conscience, which some having put away concerning faith have made shipwreck.
Exactly. So Paul is telling Timothy says, holding faith and a good conscience. So you have to have the belief and a good conscience, renewal of the mind, which some having put away concerning faith have made shipwreck. So you have some individuals that put away faith or the belief in the word, right? But it says have made shipwreck. And that word shipwreck, which is in the Greek, which is 3489, means to suffer, right? So that shipwreck says, so it says, which some having put away concerning faith have been made to suffer. Keep reading.
Of whom is Hymenaeus and Alexander, whom I have delivered unto Satan, that they may learn not to blaspheme.
So these brothers said no to the understanding of the faith, and Paul delivered them up to Satan. So these two brothers who discontinued in the understanding of the faith that you have to have in the word, and this faith is the faith that Christ came as the Son of the Most High, and that He died for our sins. And that faith and believing that He came from, I know the elders are bringing this out more and more, that those are the spirit of Antichrist don't have the faith and understanding to believe that Christ came in the flesh, according to between man and woman as well. So with that, we're going to jump over to Romans 1. So that's eternal punishment for brothers who said no to the understanding of faith concerning the Bible, or concerning what Paul received from Christ.
We're at Romans chapter 1, verse 1. Paul, a servant of Yeshua Christ, called to be an apostle, separated unto the gospel of the Most High, which He had promised afore by His prophets in the Holy Scriptures, concerning His Son, Yeshua Christ our Lord, which was made of the seed of David according to the flesh, and declared to be the Son of the Most High with power, according to the Spirit of holiness, by the resurrection from the dead.
So this scripture alone explains Christ coming in the flesh, that He is the Son of actual parents here on earth, and also that He's the Son of the Most High in the Spirit. Keep reading.
By whom we have received grace and apostleship for obedience to the faith among all nations for His name, among whom are ye also called of Yeshua Christ, to all that be in Rome, beloved of the Most High, called to be saints, grace to you and peace from the Most High our Father and the Lord Yeshua Christ.
All right, so we're going to jump over to verse 20.
Verse 20, Romans chapter 1, verse 20. For the invisible things of Him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even His eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse.
So no one's without excuse concerning what they see. It says, for the invisible things of Him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. So the things that we see in front of us, we understand and know that there is a God. So there is a God that created man in His image. So what the word tells us is what we can't see in the heavens, we see here on earth, right? So no one has an excuse to say that they didn't believe that there is a God. Keep reading.
Because that, when they knew the Most High, they glorified Him, not as the Most High, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened.
So it says here, because that when they knew Him, they glorify Him not as God. All right, keep reading.
Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the uncorruptible Most High into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds, and four-footed beasts, and creeping things.
So they knew this. So they worshiped the things they saw in front of them because they didn't believe in the Creator, because they couldn't see Him. So they refused to follow Him. Even though they knew of Him, they refused to follow Him because they didn't want to believe in or have faith in something that could create all these things they couldn't see. Can you read it?
Wherefore the Most High also gave them up to uncleanness through the lust of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, who changed the truth of the Most High into a lie, and worshiped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this cause the Most High gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change their natural use into that which is against nature.
So you see in here, the Most High gave them up unto vile affections. So he's giving them up to whatever that they're dealing with no way of coming back. Keep reading.
And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error which was meet. And even as they did not like to retain the Most High in their knowledge, the Most High gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient.
Exactly. So just like how Paul has given up those two brothers to Satan, the Most High is doing this now. He's giving these people up to Satan, because Satan is doing all these things anyway. And just to think that they said they're doing things that are unseemly, it's amazing the patience of the Most High. You know, when he sees this stuff, I don't know if the angels, when they report, they got visuals. You know, I don't know if they're just telling them or whatever like that. But I know, I know, you know, he just reported everything, and I could just only fathom, you know, even in our own lives, I just like, man, that's just like, man, I did not create y'all to do this. You know what I'm saying? It's just like unseemly, you know, to the point where you're just like, oh man, what? You know, so now nothing shocks the Most High because he knows good and evil. So, you know what I'm saying? But he's just like, oh man. Just keep reading. Keep reading.
Being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of the Most High, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents.
Man, you got people that said haters of the Most High. You know, you just hate them. I don't know how you can do that, but keep reading.
Without understanding.
That's how you hate them. Without understanding. Keep reading.
Covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who knowing the judgment of the Most High, that they which commit such things are worthy of death.
And so I'm going to go back. It says without, in verse 31, it says without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection. And that J, it says for without, it actually says unsociable. So you're antisocial. You don't want to deal with people. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, the Most High is about, you know, coming together. You know, holy convocations. Keep reading.
Who knowing the judgment of the Most High, that they
knew the judgment of the Most High. Keep reading.
That they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them.
So that's just let you know that death comes to those who say no to his commandments. You know what I'm saying? These are the spirits that are behind people who do these things when they say no or keeping the Most High's commandments. And we don't understand that leads to eternal death. All right, so we got a couple more scriptures. These scriptures are on the eternal reward we get when we say no. So Revelations 20, verses 4 through 6, and 2nd Esdras, chapter 2, verses 42 through 47.
This is the book of Revelation, chapter 20, starting at verse 4. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yeshua, and for the word of the Most High, which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads, or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Yeshua 1,000 years. But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power, but they shall be priests of the Most High and of Yeshua, and shall reign with him 1,000 years.
So this is the reward for those who say no to this system that we're in now. You know, those who say no, and these are just some of the things that happen, like we read in 2nd Esdras chapter 16, that some of us will have to go through. Everybody's not going to be able to live a long life. You know, you're going to have to say no, and even on the Most High, he says his word is fine. He says he's going to take care of you out of all trouble. But maybe our trouble is no longer have to be in this world to continue to suffer it. You know, so there's different ways on how the Most High, when he says he'll deliver you from all trouble if you keep his commandments, he's going to do that. We just don't know how it's going to be done. You know, we don't know in what format it's going to take place in. But we don't understand, if we have faith in the scriptures, that he's going to do what he said because he's bound to his word. So these are just some individuals who received the kingdom in that first 1,000 years, the first resurrection, which we all want to be a part of, right? So with that, we're going to 2nd Esdras, chapter 2, verses 42 through 47.
Second Esdras, chapter 2, starting at verse 42. I, Esdras, saw upon the Mount Zion a great people, whom I could not number, and they all praised the Most High with songs. And in the midst of them...
And you see that's another scripture you can use. And they all praise him with songs. Keep reading.
And in the midst of them, there was a young man of a high stature, taller than all the rest. And upon every one of their heads he set crowns, and was more exalted, which I marveled at greatly. So I asked the angel and said, Sir, what are these? He answered and said unto me, These be they that have put off the mortal clothing.
So it said, these people who are receiving this crown are the ones who put off the mortal clothing. We understand what the mortal is the lust of the flesh. It's the things that pertain to this world, as it mentions in 1 John 2 and 15. Where the lust of the flesh are the things that are in the mortal body. Keep reading.
And put on the immortal.
And put on the immortal, which is the spiritual, which is serving, getting baptized, which is keeping the commandments, because that's the immortal. Those things lead to eternal life. Keep reading.
And have confessed the name of the Most High.
And have confessed, because Christ said, if you deny me, I'm going to deny you before the Father. So all these things we pick up and say, hey, you just not keeping the commandments is not enough. You know, but in the face of adversity, you can't deny me before anybody. You gotta also confess that you believe on me and that you serve me as well. That's why it says that you just can't be saved by the law. You have to have the law and you have to have faith. That's what the law is actually providing us, or bringing us, to have faith in the Most High. And then by doing that, that's what that schoolmaster does. It builds our faith. If I believe in this, what the Most High tell me to do, if I believe what the Most High tell me to keep this diet, then I have the faith to know that I'm going to be healthy from that. You know what I'm saying? Because it's only words until you put them into action. You know what I'm saying? That's why I say faith without works is dead. So the Most High needs us to believe in his word, but then also have faith in it, and also Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did as well. They have to have faith in the Most High and stand up for his name as well. Keep reading.
Now are they crowned and receive palms. Then said I unto the angel, What young person is that crowneth them and giveth them palms in their hands?
So who is this individual that's standing tall before everybody, giving out crowns and palms? Can you read it?
So he answered and said unto me, It is the Son of the Most High.
It is Yeshua,
whom they have confessed in the world.
Whom they have confessed in the world. So this is, once again, we have to have, we're going to be tested on our faith and our beliefs, and we can't cower to our beliefs in the Most High and confess that, no, I am a servant of the Father. I believe in Yeshua. Keep reading.
Then began I greatly to commend them that stood so stiffly for the name of the Lord.
Exactly. So Esdras greatly commended those who stood so stiffly, right, for the name of the Most High. And that's important because his name is important, right? So that's we're going to get to the last commentary.
We must remember our choice in words is the manifestation of our decisions and spirituality. The word no can have a lasting impact on our lives and can bring us either eternal life or death. You make the choice. Shalom.
All right. All praise to the Most High and His Word. At this time, are there any questions pertaining to the topic at hand?
Shalom, everybody.
Shalom.
I'm just processing, so I might figure out while I'm talking or when you're talking too, because I'm tired.
Okay.
So I want to go back to when you were explaining about King Xerxes and Vashti and Esther. Well, no, actually, when Vashti came into, or was going to come into the.
Were you talking about as far as when she was supposed to come?
When she was supposed to come
Right.
and present herself. I don't understand that part because Elder Gabar was explaining like several weeks ago about the marriage, how it was done in the old, like, he gave examples with, I think it was Lot, with Rachel and Leah, right? Like how Leah was supposed to be.
Well, you talking Laban and Leah? Like she's supposed to be married first because she was firstborn.
Like how it was tradition to. I'm sorry, I'm having brain fart, but I'm really tired. How she was supposed to be married first, and then Elder Gabar had said that you can have a wedding feast, but you don't have to. You know, and so when King Xerxes had brought or wanted Queen Vashti to come in, were they already like legally married, or were they?
Well, yeah, they chose. Yeah, he chose her to be queen already. It's just that, just like how when you read the book of Esther, on how when you go through chapter 2 and 3, they go through the whole process. That's what Vashti did, the same thing. How Esther went through the whole process. How he had certain sisters that he was looking to choose, and then whatever choice he made, he had them go through the ritual that it was being a queen. And then she presented herself the last time to him, and he made her queen. And as he did with Esther, he did with Vashti as well.
Okay,
But
I get that part.
Okay.
I'm confused about the part where Vashti, because she's walking in vain, she doesn't come in, but that means she's not going to be queen. But how can you be queen if you're already married and it's like you're putting a political point across, and then you're also putting the marriage part across. So he's doing it all in a feast day, and then I'm getting mixed up with the laws of the old.
Well, you got to remember, this is Persian. So their laws is different as far as how they operated according to the laws of marriage. Like I said, the Hebrews, as far as when you marry, you can't put away a wife or give her a bill of divorcement unless at that same night or consummation, she was not a virgin when she said she was, or if there happened some type of act of adultery, but back then it was death. But like I said, this was the Persians and how they operated concerning marriage. So you don't want to confuse the two concerning on how the Hebrews, our forefathers, did marriage, versus how the Persians did it. And remember, a lot of the customs because they all come from Abraham, Isaac, from Noah's 3 sons. So a lot of the customs are close to the same, but they do them all differently because they don't actually follow the God. It's like they get information, like third-hand information from somebody else, where it's not from the exact source. So they start doing it, but it's not exactly the same as how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah, and I also want to comment, like in India, like where I'm from, and where they had the wedding feast, like for 160 days?
Yeah, 160 days, right.
Yeah, in India, like that's true. They some wedding feasts, like if you're really like the older tradition, they really do that. It's like and everybody's involved. Like you don't even have to know you. Like you could be across the country and coming to the wedding, and you're still part of, like, it's like family. Yeah.
That's interesting. So it's still said it's still doing that today. It's still part of their culture.
Doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's, like I said, that's how Persians, how they did it as far as when it came to marriage. But like I said, she was selected to be. You got to remember, she was selected to be queen. But like we just read in the Septuagint, it wasn't confirmed until she was brought before the king. So she was still, it was like almost as still she was selected, but she wasn't, and the king didn't put a stamp on it until she was it says Septuagint, she was enthroned to be made queen. So once that happened, then she would have been queen, but she didn't even get to that point yet. She just, like we said earlier, she thought she had it in the bag because she was selected. Mm-hmm. She went through the whole purification process. She got selected. Now she thought she was in. So she figured that she was in, well, I don't have to listen to the king, I'm attractive, all these different things that she had. So she was disobedient to her head, and then after that, he did bring out some righteous judgment according to that, because he didn't want the rest of the kingdom, where sisters were like, all right, man, she disrespecting me now. How that's gonna make me look in front of everybody else? And then what they're gonna do is not gonna start empowering the women. Well, I want to be like Vashti. I ain't gonna do, I'm not gonna do whatever you tell me to do, or I'm not gonna stay in my role as my position as a wife. So they did, out of that did come some righteous judgment that is according to our laws as far as that. But like I said, once again with the marriage thing like that, like I said, that's on the level with the Persians, how they do it. So that's probably why, you probably conflicted in the two, because it's opposite of how we do marriage.
Right, and just from my family's tradition too, it was confusing. Yeah.
Right. All right. Cool.
Can I ask you another one?
Go ahead. You can.
All right. The quote that you mentioned, and I think it comes from in the book of 2nd Esdras. Am I saying that right?
Esdras, yes.
Esdras. Mm-hmm. You said, better not given the earth to Adam. I don't understand that.
Well, But basically, when he's explaining this in 2nd Esdras chapter 7, verse 46, he said, better not have given it to him because because by giving it to him, he basically saying the same thing that Job said, I wish I was never born. So basically, why, give the earth to Adam to only to where he was going to fall and not be able to keep the commandments. Right, so so better not even having created him, since we got to go through all this now.
Or what I want to know is why create Satan to make him even tempt him?
Well, he was created before man, so he was created like angels have choices as well. He was created in righteousness, but like I said, but they have the wisdom of good and evil. So he had a choice, to do, but all the angels have this ancient knowledge. It's just that man didn't have it. So Satan had both good and evil, which he allowed the gods of the angels to have. But they were supposed to, do righteous and do the Most High's bidding. But of course, Satan chose evil. Are you good? You said
We're gonna talk more.
All right. Anybody else have any other questions?
Shalom, everybody.
Shalom.
I have a question from Daniel 3 and 25. At the end of that verse, it says, the appearance of the fourth is like the Son of God. If that's Old Testament, how would he know what Christ looked like to be able to recognize him in the fleshly form from that distance away?
Let me check here. No, Daniel 3. You saying, so how would he know that it was the Son of God? How he would know?
Officer, if I can give it a try, it seems like what you're asking is that since Yeshua wasn't in the scene, how would the king know that's Yeshua? Part of it has to do with secular history, because even when you read the book of Adam, he knew of Christ. He knew the difference between the Son of God and God. It seems like that's something that they kind of hide from us, still questioning Christ, when everybody in the ancient time knew the image of the Most High. They knew that the Father had a Son. They knew what the Godhead looked like. They knew Elohim, but they're trying to hide that from us. So now when we read the scripture, we get confused, like how did Moses know Christ? How do those ancient men know Christ? But part of it has to do with secular history, what they're trying to do to us.
Yeah, and also, thank you, because that just jogged the thought in my mind. And remember in the records when you go into Genesis, and how Abraham saw, Yeshua. And you had Joshua that saw Yeshua. You had Gideon that saw Yeshua. So you got a lot of this information that was brought forth and all the work they did in order to where, a lot of us, our history gets published, just like, for instance, in the book of Joshua. It explains that in Jericho, they already heard of all the things that the children of Israel done in the wilderness. So word travels quickly concerning, who is who. So a lot of times with that information, just like the officer said, through secular history, one would know, through, because a lot of our information, the Hebrew, the ancient, is through illustrations and things like that, where they would have an understanding of who was, like he said, who is who concerning our God, as far as that. Because like I said, he knows the Lord. He said, and one was like the Son of God. So they understood that the God there was a difference in their God and the God of the Hebrews as well.
So I was thinking to this question, in Daniel 7, when he had a dream and he seen the Most High with the hair and his hair and his face is like fire.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the New Testament, Yeshua was like, if you seen me, if you seen the Father, if you seen me, you seen the Father. So is that how he might have knew how he looked too?
The who?
Is that how they might have knew how Yeshua looked too, because of that vision?
What are you talking about, as far as in Daniel or as far as in the New Testament?
Well, in Daniel, because he's talking about Daniel chapter 3, but in chapter 7, he had a vision of
right. He had a vision of the Most High, and he had a vision of Yeshua.
Right, and then Yeshua was like, if you seen me, you seen the Father. So they looking like.
Right. In that instance, and when you talk about as far as the New Testament, because like I said, no one ever seen obviously the Father. He just got an image of his hair, in the throne he was sitting on. Yeshua was, of course, a different understanding. Multiple people saw actually Yeshua. So in that instance, he looks like his father. So you can use that in that reference. But I think what you're alluding to as far as the New Testament is concerning on how Christ is the Word of the Most High. He's the Word. That the same thing, whatever you see me doing, is what the Father wants you to do also. So in both aspects, that's true. Yeah, you see me, you see a Father, but not in the current form he was in.
Okay.
Until they saw him in I think it's John 17, when they saw Peter and the sons of Zebedee saw him in his true form.
Right.
As far as that's the image that of the Father when they saw him in his glorious form.
Okay.
Officer.
I was just saying, what if, how it talks about in Job, Son of God, could have been just sort of like, if we see something we've never seen before, man, that's God. You know what I'm saying? Son of God, it could have been, he said it's like 4 of them in there. Maybe he could have thought of it something like a characteristic of being heavenly or out of this world.
Right, because if you get going to like the New Testament concerning John the Baptist being born, or the prophecy being born, and how that angel, it was fear upon him. He's like one of the sons of God, angels. And they looked at him in fear as well, as far as that. So, and in some instances that could be used as far as that. But I think most of them are capitalized concerning on who they're actually referring to. Yes.
I was going to ask, because if you go down to the 28th verse, and that same, it says that there was an angel that was sent to deliver them. So I was wondering, is like how you were just saying, like even in Esther, where they gave the description of him being taller than everybody, like is it because they knew those like attributes to separate, I guess, like angelic or angel from regular person? Like is it because he's taller? Or the gloriousness of him, does he shine brighter in the furnace? Where, like, is it something about him that makes him stand out? To where even if they had never seen him with their own eyes, they know, hey,
this is what they heard. I mean, just like with somebody, you can put physical characteristics in that as well, to where someone can say if they never saw someone, they have an appearance of someone versus what they heard. They can know, oh, okay, that's who you're talking about. Things like that in that particular format as far as that. But we know this was Christ because he said that God will deliver us, and God did with the Son of God, Yeshua, even though because he is an angel as well, above the rest of them. So, any other questions? Okay, all right, yeah.
Just a comment
Okay.
on what you just said. There was a video that Elder Ricard did, and he did mention that the angel in that furnace was Yeshua. And I think it was described, I forget the name of what the video was, but it was about angels.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he specifically said that was Yeshua. He gave examples how Yeshua was an angel of the Lord through the Old Testament, and he gave examples in certain time frames.
Right.
And that was one of them.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment.
All right, throw out, sister. Throw out. All right, it's like that's it. So, once again, to give the Most High a hand for His word on today. We go ahead and,
Really breaks my heart. Cause we've been lied to, misled for years, calling out to